Comparing the E160 to the K30, it is slightly larger, slightly heavier. In terms of the dimensions, length 338 millimeters versus 300. So look at them side by side there, a bit more blade length, obviously longer tail boom length. The bit up the front's pretty similar in size. Battery, so it's gone to a bigger battery, 700 milliamp hour, 36 gram battery compared with the 600 milliamp hour battery, 31 grams. Put them on the scales, E160 flying weight, 158 grams, and E130 with Metal Gear servos fitted on there, so which I've upgraded, and there's a few other little bits. There's a few bits of hot glue, there's a few rubber O-rings and things like that on there as well. Should probably add it a gram or two, 134 grams. If we look at the blades, E160 blade, 150 mils from the pivot to the pivot to the end of the blade. The rotor diameter 350 in comparison K130, 10 millimeters shorter and hence 20 millimeters less than the overall rotor diameter. If we look at the blade shapes profiles, we find that the K130 blade is probably a bit more suited to higher revs, which is appropriate when it's spinning, and the E160 blade will tend to work better at lower revs, and when you look at the motor matchups, that seems quite appropriate. Looking at the comparative disc loading, so we've got a graph there of an eclectic mixture of helicopters. On the left-hand end, which is the kind of relatively heavy or kind of like weighty end relative to the size of the rotor disc, we've got the WL Toys V950 with the stock battery, and at the right hand end, which is the relatively lightweight and floaty end, we've got the little XK K100. If we look at where the E160 is on the scale, so pretty much in the middle of this mixture, so sitting in between the old HiSky HCP 100S and also the Oxy 2 with 215mm blades on there. If we look at where the K130 is with the Metal Gear servos, just a little bit lighter relatively in the air, and the next one to the right of that is the K130 with the plastic gear servos, just as per stock. Interestingly, the new Eachine E180, which is obviously a bit of a 3D monster, which will be relatively more powerful, more heavily built and all the rest of it, is up that left-hand end of things. But of course, it will then be trading it off with a lot more head speed, which will give it the overall lift required. When we're looking at individual features on the birds, first thing, looking at main motor. So Eachine E160 gone to the 1312 motor instead of a 1308, so a taller motor, which would tend to produce more torque. It's also a lower kV motor, so 6500 compared with 9200. So less revs, more torque is what we would expect from that. Looking at the main gears there, the meshing and pinion meshing has changed. I've gone from an M0.4 to an M0.5, so bigger gear teeth, so a bit more solid engagement. If you look at all the details on the E160 gear, you see it's just got more plastic in it. It's just a bit more heavily engineered, more solid. The rev range of the motors is quite different, so 6.2 to 1 reduction instead of 8 to 1 reduction on the K130. So this just better suits the lower revving E160 motor, and theoretically maximum head speed around about kind of 9% lower than the K130. Yeah, and that is very theoretical. Tail motor, I've gone from the old brushed motor to a brushless on the tail of the E160, which should equate to better power, longer life, and also better electrical efficiency. On the heads, the head individual part sizes have got bigger and stronger. 2.5mm feathering shaft instead of 2mm. It just means it's going to be more resistant to bending, less likely to bend in a crash. Larger and longer blade grips. Again, more in there. Looking at the plastics, stronger skids, battery tray and chassis. The chassis also extends and better supports the flight controller PCB, so it has 4 screw mounts instead of 3 on the K130. And if we look at the servos, we've got Metal Gear servos as standard, whereas the K130 comes with plastic geared servos. This actually adds a lot of cost to do this upgrade. Depending on which particular servos you get, by the time you buy them and add them on, it's a significant upgrade overall. The servo mounting is also improved and stronger. If we look at the E160 on the right, you see there's an additional screw mount at the rear of the rear servo. You probably won't pick it up particularly well, but on the K130 there, I've got bits of hot glue in there to help support the servo and stop it from twisting around.